Call the meeting to order, the Highways Committee agenda. Actually, there should be another name soon for that.
Excellent point, Mr. Chairman of the Transportation and Environmental Services Committee.
That's correct.
Excellent point.
Thank you. But I would ask anyone, a member of council, if you have a declaration of interest, pecuniary interest, that you declare it now or at the appropriate time. And the agenda is before you, and we have a large number of action items, and I will call on Brian to lead us through those, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is Bridge and Culvert Capital Forecast. Two veins of thought in the report, one of which is revenue for the program, and the other is the 5-year program, and specifically the bridges for 2018. So wading into the revenue side, I refer you to the Asset Management Plan, I believe January 2016, and on the second page we're given guidance as to appropriate funding streams towards a variety of asset groups. The top of the center of the page, top of the table, would be bridges and culverts. And there I direct you to an assessed appropriate expenditure value annually of about $1.2 million. I offer that the report was written for 2016. Consequently, the value of $1.544 million was the amount for 2016. Our report identifies that the 2017 contribution towards bridges was $1.755. So having a regard for the report, we can springboard back into our report and then look at the revenue stream that we had recommended. Yet before we leave the page, I think I'd be remiss not to bring your attention to the middle of the page, which reflects the road program. On that row, we identify needs of about $10 million. We identify current funding, and I really have to point out that the gas tax has played a major component in this department's capital program for roads. Like, if you can see, in the past is approximately $5 million annually, is $2 million of that is from the federal government for a fuel tax. A comment I believe worth making, Mr. Chairman. Returning to the committee, I apologize, returning to the committee report, is what we have done is we've used the values from the 2016 Asset Management Report to provide the table on the second page. It reflects the 2018 actual contribution towards the bridge reserve. It identifies what the asset management plan suggests as a long-term revenue stream. I've made a minor adjustment to adjust the report, the capital asset management report value, up to a current value. So I've used the value of $4.264 million, which suggests a 15-year program which would increase the allocation towards bridges and culverts in the amount of $168,000. And the other component of the recommendation from the capital asset management plan was an inflationary increase. So if I can offer the suggested revenue stream for bridges for 2019 was $1,958 million. If we can now hop over to the table that we've provided, which is our 5-year plan, we can notice over to the right we've got a variety of columns, some of which identify the reserve values at the beginning of the year, the amount that we transfer into the reserve for bridges and culverts annually. You can see the value for 2018 being the $1,755,000. Then we go through the list of projects that we have for 2018. The total amount that we are recommending for 2018 in the amount of $6,645,000 means year-end, over to the extreme right, that the reserve balance would be a little in excess of $500,000. If I could refer you a bit further down the page for the 2019 contribution to the program, that is the number of $1,958,000 that I alluded to earlier in the report. So that is the structure of a 5-year plan, putting money into the reserve and then withdrawing money as we do the individual projects. Returning again to the report, we look at the projects for 2018. And I go through the report. The largest project is McCurdy Bridge. You reviewed a recommendation at the last committee meeting, and the The cost for that replacement for the county is $3.6 million. That's embodied in the table. The next largest project is the Mill Creek Bridge, which is an item on today's agenda, but we thought it prudent to give you the framework of a 5-year plan and how these bridges fit into it before we actually deal with the individual projects. So you'll see later this morning is that the amount for the Mill Creek Bridge will be in the amount of $1.8 million county cost. We'll see elsewhere in today's group of reports, tender summary with a recommendation to award a contract in a much larger number, but as we'll discuss, there's a developer component of that draws down our actual county costs. Yet we have to award the contract at the contract value you'll see in a later report. Finally, for the larger projects, we've got 2 box culvert replacements that we're working with Grey County on. They're spearheading the work. These box culverts are adjacent to South Bruce, just north of Clifford. So you can expect road closures this summer as that work is undertaken. Mr. Chairman, we can now actually take a look. I think pictorially, we've identified where we're doing bridge and culvert work in 2018. Starting down the south is we identify a culvert on the boundary of 86 near Highway 21 that requires struts and a floor as a part of a municipal drain. Working with Huron County further towards Lucknow, there's a box culvert there. That actually is a road asset, but I've shown it on here because it is a culvert, but it's a road asset that will be accommodated in our road program, which you'll see not today, but in the near future. Moving further east in Formosa, we're hoping to do some work in Formosa. There's a small repair on a culvert before we do the paving in the project in Formosa from the creek north to the North Hill in Formosa. On the boundary between Grey and Bruce, we've identified the 2 box culverts at the south. There's also 3 bridges in Grey's jurisdiction that they wish to replace steel beam guardrail. Those are included as a bridge asset, consequently coming from the bridge reserve. We've also got the 2 bridges near Hanover on Bruce Road 4 that we hope to make repairs on to springboard into work on Bruce Road 4 itself in 2019-2020. Moving north, we've got the McCurdy Bridge on the boundary between Brockton and Aaron-Ildesley. We've also got the Starks Mill Bridge on Bruce Road 1 in Paisley, and I'll note that because I believe that's the next item on your agenda this morning. We've got the Mill Creek Bridge on Road 17 as you enter Port Elgin, and we'll talk more about that today and the variety of action items that we wish to work towards on Mill Creek Bridge. We've got the Old Shanks Bridge on Bruce Road 3 that's not on Bruce Road 3, had been on Bruce Road 3, yet requires a bit of attention. It's the truss that we see at a distance when we cross the Saugeen River. It needs some attention in order to nurse it through to have further non-vehicular use. We've got minor funds on the Erin Township Bridge. We had been before the Council of Aaron-Ildesley, and from that meeting thinking it prudent for us to identify strengths and weaknesses on that bridge, just to quantify them in our discussions with their council concerning the best future use on that single lane truss bridge. Mr. Chairman, at some length, I believe that is your report.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. A lot of work to be done in that report, and there is a recommendation before us that the 2018 withdrawal from the Bridge and Culvert Reserve be revised to reflect a total withdrawal of $6,645,000. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Mike, second by Mitch. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next, carry on.
The current warden, past chairman, had always asked that I provide a copy of a paper agenda. So I have attempted to do the same, Mr. Chairman, so I offer that to you.
So the next item is the Capital Bridge Project, Starks Mill Bridge on Bruce Road 1 in Paisley.
unsurprisingly, Mr. Chairman, as we mentioned beforehand, is we require some attention on the Starks Mill Bridge. It looks a lot like that. It's on Bruce Road 1 on the westerly limit of Paisley. Almost, I think it probably is the dividing line of the urban area. It suffers from a design in the 70s which had concrete posts and steel beam, which in today's world requires replacement and reinforcement and re-strengthening. I would imagine we're going to be putting a parapet wall on that, taking the posts off, doing some work on the face of the curb, and pouring a solid wall with handrail on that bridge. So, Mr. Chairman, in order to move ahead with that, we're asking for your acknowledgement that we assign the work to design approvals and prepare a contract and have BM Ross undertake that work in the estimated amount of about $26,000.
Okay. The recommendation that the estimate from BM Ross to design, obtain approvals, prepare contract documents, and administer the rehabilitation work on the Starks Mill Bridge on Bruce Road 1 in Paisley in the amount of $26,000 be approved. Motion moved by Robert, seconded by Ann. Any discussion?
Just to be clear, that bridge is in Brockton.
Oh.
Not that it matters.
Oh.
Oh. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Warden, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any further discussion or clarification? Mike?
And I know it's a guess, but what do you expect the tender to be at? Like, what's the cost to repair that, Brent? Is it pretty significant?
I haven't remembered it all.
Is it in the? It's in the report. I can find it. Don't worry.
Starks Bridge.
Probably.
Yeah, $180,000, including the engineering, actually. Yeah, we're expecting a new parapet wall, repairs on the soffit, and probably a little bit of curb work.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on then to item C, Mill Creek Bridge Rehabilitation, Bruce Road 17.
Mr. Chairman, we had been before the committee back in August in preparation for a lot of work this fall on this structure and in conjunction with an adjacent developer. And working with our own planning department. A fairly complicated application in terms of a development that requires servicing beyond the current limits of the servicing of the community. So it required servicing along Bruce Road 17, across the bridge, and into the developer's property. So the combination of elements are an agreement with the county for the work on the bridge to put two water mains, one force main, and to put a sidewalk that doesn't exist right now. And acknowledging that to put the servicing on Bruce Road 17 requires an agreement with the developer for external servicing, as well as the fundamental purpose of the development, which is the subdivision agreement. And to the developer, it occurred that the pivotal one was the agreement on the bridge. So you can see it's a large amount of money that the developer must contribute in order to get the servicing across on the bridge. So I don't believe they have not signed the external servicing agreement. They have not signed the subdivision agreement, all of which is pivotal on the agreement with the county and the tendering of this bridge. So we had moved ahead with our consultant, with their consultant, and with the developer. We formulated a tender. We tendered, and we received 5 bids in the report. Low bid was substantially lower than the second low bid. We then allocated the costs to the low tender towards county and developer, and then we met and spoke to a number of issues that were evident within the individual items. And with some work, we came down to a cost apportionment as seen on the last page, which is a county portion of $1.75 million, developer portion a little in excess of $500,000. So we have prepared a cost-sharing arrangement with the developer, with the county's solicitor, with the developer's solicitor that is in our office today. Actually, I think Darlene may have the signed by the developer in front of us today. And to them, that was pivotal before they went ahead with external servicing and subdivision, plan of subdivision.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in response to Brian, that's right, Brian. Just kidding. Through you, in response to Director Knox's comment, we do have scheduled a council meeting at the end of today to get this item approved if committee wish so.
A very tight time frame because two of the elements in the tender had been accelerated work and winter work. So the intention is with the willpower of committee, the developer has done, and consultants and county have done a lot of work to be at today's decision point. Because with the willpower of committee, we would award the job this afternoon or tomorrow, and it would start on February 12th to see a completion date of June 1st in order for that developer to have confidence that his kickoff year in the development would be a summer action. So a lot of things had to align and work had to be done to get to today's meeting. Consequently, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation had been in multifold for budget room, for recognition of the agreement for the award of the job, and a recognition that we continue with BM Ross, or we engage BM Ross to do the contract administration. To speak to that last issue, I believe there's a price in the report for the contract administration. We were given an estimate of $74,000 for full cost of administration, less the $10,000, which was a component of the developer. So that value is in the report as well, Mr. Chairman.
We have a recommendation that the county's portion of the total project cost in the amount of $1.8 million be funded from the bridge reserve, and that a bylaw be introduced to authorize the warden and clerk to execute the cost-sharing agreement between Red Hawk Construction and the county, and that the county award the rehabilitation of the Mill Creek Bridge to Bronte Construction, and that BM Ross be retained to complete the construction review and contract administration for the Mill Creek Bridge rehabilitation. I need a motion. Moved by Milt, seconded by Mike. Discussion. Mike?
Just a comment. I know you put a lot of work into this, Brian. This would be unique to see this done at a little different time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been, I think, it's always been a kind of an issue when we do a lot of construction and affect businesses that we try and. But it'll be interesting to see how this works.
If I can offer, Mr. Chairman, is the uniqueness of this. This is a superstructure replacement. It was a 1970s build of a thin deck that did not have studs on the steel girders, and it's deteriorated badly, as you would expect a thin deck of 7 inches. The conventional deck is a 9-inch deck. So the fortunate thing about this project is there's no in-water work. It's the in-water work that seems to be the huge impediment to any structure. So again, it's because of the nature of the work. I believe that this is possible.
And in most bridges we do in-water work, so this is
yes. Both the only ones are the small rigger frames. But yes, again, council has seen a lot of bridges over the Teeswater and Saugeen demanding piers. Right. Yeah.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move on to item D, Bruce Road 25 and Bruce Road 33, realignment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick review. In April, committee saw a preferred solution for a master plan. In May, we had posted the notice of completion. We didn't receive further feedback within the traditional 30-day period. We then go on in the report to define what are Schedule A EA projects and which are Schedule B projects to identify further environmental assessment work. We acknowledge that the master plan allows us to move through phases 1 and 2 of the environmental assessment, meaning there's no further work, EA work required for Schedule A projects, but there is some for Schedule B projects. Then I think it best, Mr. Chairman, just to springboard right into the plan itself, and we can identify the 4-year schedule of the work. In 2018, the yellow lines identify that we put the storm sewer in from the lake almost to Highway 21, and we rebuild the short section of road from the lake up towards Shipley Avenue. In 2019, we complete the 2-lane urban cross-section and servicing from Shipley all the way to the future Bruce Street. In 2020, we do the 4-lane work from the future Bruce Street to Highway 21. And in 2021, we actually do the realignment of Bruce Road 33 that will align itself in green with the future Bruce Street. And we do some, municipality does some servicing, as well as we rehabilitate the road, the old Road 33 from the new realignment towards the present County Road 25. And if I can offer, a lot of the roads that become less traveled would be transferred back to the local municipality, being, if I could, the old Lake Range Road, as we call it, would likely be renamed, as well as the section of Road 25 from the future Bruce Street all the way down to the lake. Returning now to the report, we've gone over the 4-year schedule. You see before you the approximate cost allocations between Saugeen Shores and the county. And we acknowledge that we hope to engage the consultant to undertake the 2018 work, as we mentioned beforehand, which is storm sewer as well as a small section of road down by the lake. We also hope to complete the environmental assessment Schedule B for the Phase 4 work, which is the acquisition, which would enable us to acquire the land for the realignment of Bruce Road 33. And we're on the pinnacle of placing the ad in the paper to acknowledge that realignment and finishing the Schedule B environmental assessment. That will afford us the chance to move ahead with the land purchase. We're working with landowners right now. We're preparing packages to landowners for them to consider, and we're then approaching appraisal companies of which to assess fair value for the land. Mr. Chairman, we acknowledge that we've been working for many years with GM Blue Plan on this. We've asked them for a price to take us through for the 2018 work to see the contract be prepared, and in order to assist us in the environmental assessment to allow us to purchase the land. Their price, I didn't attach it to the report, I think is $62,000, Mr. Chairman. So on that basis, we hope to move forward to gain design detail for the job, with the expectation that we'll return to you in the new year with our 2018 road program and 5-year program, as we fit this schedule into our 5-year road program. And quite frankly, we include the West Road schedule now that there has been a preferred solution identified. We've got something upon which to base calculations on, and we include other needed projects, as well as our ongoing resurfacing and road rehabilitation. So this is sort of pivotal to move ahead and come back to you with a program like we did for the bridges to see how this fits in before we enter a cost-sharing agreement with Saugeen Shores, to see how this fits into a long-range arrangement between Saugeen Shores and the county.
And there is a recommendation that GM Blue Plan be retained to complete the design and prepare tender specifications for Phase 1 of the Bruce Road 25 and 33 project as identified below. Mover and a seconder, moved by Mitch, seconded by Ann. Discussion? Mitch?
No, I think this is a very good project for the town of Saugeen Shores. It's a big one in the last 4 years, but I think this, with all the growth especially happening in Saugeen Shores, I think this is a project that has to happen. So, a lot of work.
If you see the traffic, it will alleviate some of the traffic on 21 as well. It's just, you know, just in the municipality of Kincardine, at least I'm hoping it will, our snowplows sometimes in the morning and the winter can't cross from if they find it very difficult to cross 21 from the 4th right up to our boundary with Saugeen Shores. There's just no break in the traffic, and they say they wait as long as 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes trying to get across, and just at the very time. So that indicates the traffic that is on at the change of shifts especially the morning and the afternoon. So I think this will alleviate some of it. And then in the future, I think with the growth, we really have to look at Road 23 as well, out of town, because it's ridiculous as well. And you know, that's, I think with the traffic count, I don't know what the latest traffic count on it is, but that's a future discussion. But I think to get some of that traffic off 21, when you're going in the morning north on 21, you have this big trail way back behind you, and the turn at Tiverton is unreal. So I think our county roads, we have to really look at our whole traffic into the plant. It's just becoming, you think you're in the city.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to item E, Carson's Camp pedestrian signal, Bruce Road 13.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we've been before the committee several times to identify the need for pedestrian signals at a location, at the camp location. Back in January of this year, committee had agreed in principle to move ahead with this initiative that is funded capitally entirely by the camp itself. Consequently, before you today is a recommendation that we enter an agreement to facilitate the work of putting those pedestrian signals in.
Thank you, Brian. You've heard the recommendation. Got a mover and a seconder. Moved by Janice, seconded by Robert. Any discussion? Yes.
Thanks, Brian. So are they planning on having this completed by the May long weekend? Is that their target?
Jeepers. Martin's dealing with this a bit more than myself. I would expect so. Yeah, we did attach the sketch. It's not that, it's not going to impact Road 13 that much. There's some curb they have to put in, but they're not doing any work that would break the traffic. So there might be traffic to a single lane during the course of the day. Right. But there's not going to be a road closure for the work.
And the area that the existing sidewalks are being removed, and then I guess they're going to repave that. They're paying for all of that as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Martin spent some time actually to identify that they try and better align the two entrances. If you recall, there's quite a jog.
Off a bit.
And with some effort, we've come up with that arrangement that's a lot more aligned than it had been in the past.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to speed zone changes. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe we need a vote.
Did we not?
I don't believe we did. We have a mover and a seconder, but...
Yeah, we didn't call the question. All those in favor?
Oops.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. I think I had a positive vote there. All right, we can move on then to item F, speed zone changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two locations that we're wishing committee to consider a speed zone change, one of which was the Carson's Camp area, in order to lower the speed limit from what is now posted at 70 kilometers per hour down to 60 kilometers per hour to recognize that pedestrian signal. And the other location is in Burgoyne. We've received a number of calls lately of Burgoyne. We require to do some more traffic counts in Burgoyne. We've inquired of the Saugeen Shores Police Service of the accident experience, so we're gaining some information. So we hope to count the traffic at that intersection in Burgoyne. But at this time, we wish to identify that the speed should be 50 kilometers per hour on the four legs. So the substance of the report, Mr. Chairman, is Burgoyne and the Carson Camp application.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. The motion or the recommendation is before you. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Mitch, Ann. Any discussion? All those in, oh yes, Paul?
Reducing the speed there is a one step forward, but it's still not going to solve the issues that some folks feel is there, and it's gotten to be busy. And I know I was copied the letter, I think, which was forwarded on to your department, Brian, about a set of lights there or a roundabout? I'm just wondering how far on are you with one of those?
Yes, actually, we're working with our engineering technologist, Martin, and we're going to do the traffic counts this summer to identify the warrants. We've done some work concerning the accident experience at the intersection. I presume there's going to be a treatment there of some nature.
Okay. You're over and above or beyond the speed
yes,
restrictions?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other comments? Yes, Robert?
One thing I was just wondering, when you do these traffic counts, do they have the technology to determine the volume of traffic on different time slots?
Actually, the intersection counts are a little different than the conventional traffic count. So the intersection count is probably a 10 to 12 hour count that identifies every maneuver on each of the 4 legs. So on one leg of the intersection, they'll identify left turns, straight through, and right turns. And they even count trucks and pedestrians. So they're rigorous counts done by the hour, and then you measure the warrants based on, the conflicts of using the intersection. So left turners conflict with straight throughs and conflict with traffic in the other opposing legs. So it's fairly rigorous when you do an intersection count. An intersection count being a lot different than your traditional traffic count for annual average daily traffic count, which is just a raw number per day per 24-hour period. So they are fairly rigorous counts.
Yes, Janice? Oops,
sorry. So Brian, for the Carson's camp, do you think 60 is appropriate instead of 50? What made you decide the 60 over the 50? Because you're coming, at that point when you're traveling north, you hit Carson's camp, but then you're right about getting into the main intersection of Sauble.
If I can offer, it is some distance away. Generally, we like to associate the 50 with curb and gutter, and then the traffic feels more constrained when they have the curb and gutter beside them. We felt 60 was going to be a bit of a challenge in that very open cross-section because it's a 100-foot wide road allowance. There are very few entrances for the next 2 or 3 blocks until you get to the curb and gutter. I would suggest we start with the 60, go this 70 to the 60.
I didn't know they related to curb and gutter. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm smarter today.
Oh.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Are there any other questions? Did you have one, Ann?
Just when you were talking about Robert's question on traffic counts, so you can't, there isn't the technology to record hour by hour?
There definitely is. We normally don't do that for our traditional annual accounts, though. But yeah, though there definitely is. Again, I think the uniqueness of the intersection is counting all the maneuvers, and it's generally done by a person sitting there and actually doing fairly rudimentary stuff. I would have to ask Martin if I know there's technology to get just raw counts for straight through traffic, whatever goes over the loop or the device that's acknowledging the presence. But it's when the decision's made to start crossing the road is that you start to divide up, you confuse traffic. But I'm not sure that knowing technology, there might be something more rigorous, but we do it so infrequently that generally a person is there for some time making
just counting.
Actually doing the hand chart. Or maybe I'm thinking too long ago when we used to do the hand charts and identify the traffic. So I'd have to ask Martin if there's something new. He might have that in mind.
I've got a good story with the old hand counts, but I won't tell it now. But,
Okay.
So the hour by hour is just mainly for straight. So when you do the straight road counts, you do the hour by hour?
Yeah, our counts are structured such that the team puts a counter down, which is a loop across the road, and it detects how many times a vehicle goes over the loop. And that is generally a 24-hour count. But you can, they are time sensitive. You can get them down into hours if you wish, even on those straight pressure loops.
You can program.
Yeah, you easily can. We traditionally haven't done that yet because we're just aiming for rough traffic counts to meet our minimum maintenance standards. But they are there. Like, well, they're pretty elaborate. Once you get the pressure of the loop establishing a count, the small computers can do all kinds of stuff with it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're down to G, waste management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two components of the report. The first is the 2016 annual waste management report. If I can offer, you may say, well, my gosh, we're at the end of 2017. Do reflect that we get the annual reports from the individual landfill sites by mid-year the year after. Consequently, we have met with the subcommittee, members of Public Works. Actually, we had a meeting on November 1st, and it was attended by all the Public Works members to have our annual meeting, review the report, and they recommended that we adopt the report. And I should like to go over a couple of figures in that report, and then we'll speak to the Waste-Free Ontario Act. So reviewing the waste report, I skip all the way down, and we generally spend some time on the two charts, one being by municipality landfill consumption, and the other the diversion chart. So the chart, table 4 in the 2016 report, identifies the consumption in 2016 of landfill, which is in the amount of about 53,000. It looks at the annual average consumption, which is about 55,000 cubic meters, identifies the remaining capacity within the county, and it then makes a prognostication of remaining life, whether it be by the annual rate or by the 5-year average. So by aggregate, the county is in very good condition when it comes to the availability of landfill sites. You can see by municipality, it's always the hope that municipalities can keep 20 years of capacity ahead of them. We note particular in the north we have a bit of a capacity challenge, yet we're aware that they have been on the pinnacle of expanded capacity for a number of years, and they await. Pardon? It's really close. Yes. Super. They're very close to, I think, substantial increased capacity. Yes. 35 or 40 years. Super. Mr. Chairman, so just a bit of an aside and a bit of a note, and again, it's a benefit to municipalities for their internal purposes, and possibly to focus attention on areas where there could be needs, and for future budgeting where some effort is required to identify that capacity is shrinking and solutions should be identified. Then we often go back to down to the diversion programs, and it's a 2-page table by municipality, and the first table that dominates the diversion is the Blue Box program. We can see how much collection is undertaken by the Basra group as well as the Miller group in the north, and it is substantial, and we'll talk to that issue more so in just a minute, because there's some proposed changes. Coming. Then we look along the top, we see MHSW that Kerry Meyer undertakes on behalf of the county. The 2016 number is 135 ton. You'll see later in the morning that the number for 2017 is about 150 ton. We then go through a variety of other programs. I highlight the electronic waste. We've highlighted Blue Box, MHSW, and I also bring to your attention the tires. These are some programs that are about to be in flux. You know, the new act is causing some changes. The most recent change is causing some decision-making on behalf of the Blue Box that we'll talk about in a moment. The second page identifies other diversion streams, and just generally how the county and the public works managers and councils have put a lot of attention into offering their constituents a variety of diversion programs. Mr. Chairman, that was the substance of the 2016 Waste Management Report. We now return to the county report, our report of today, and talk to the issue of changes created by the Waste-Free Ontario Act. Changes have been coming very quickly, and I refer specifically to the Blue Box program. In our meeting of November 1st, we had a speaker that spoke to the issue of blue boxes. It was a great session. He offered a lot of insight to the Public Works managers and answered a lot of questions. I think councils are aware that there's change imminent in blue box. I believe there's a document out just as recently as 2 days ago that identifies more information concerning directions with the blue box, and I believe your Public Works manager has brought those issues to your attention. So, Mr. Chairman, the purpose of today's report is to acknowledge the overall management report, 2016 report for your consideration, as well as to just bring your attention that Kerry is assisting the public managers in getting documentation and understanding of the possible ramifications on the blue box issue.
Okay. You've heard the recommendation. Could I have a motion to approve the presentation? Mitch, seconded by Robert. Discussion? Milt?
If I could, I'm just wondering if Kerry could give us just a brief update on what she thinks is the time frame with this new Blue Box initiative, please.
Certainly. So the amended Blue Box program plan is under review as we speak. The minister directed a letter to have an amendment to the Blue Box program plan that happened early summer. With that, this fall, there was a number of workshops that AMO put on, as well as Stewardship Ontario, to update municipalities and other stakeholders about the amended Blue Box program and the directive that the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change had regarding this amended Blue Box program plan. So with that, a number of workshops were held. Original feedback was due November 24th, and the lower tier municipalities, as well as Basra and the county, put our initial feedback together. The draft amended Blue Box program was set to be released actually tomorrow, and it was released late yesterday. So there will do a workshop regarding the amended draft program January 8th, with comments due January 15th. There's a number of other key dates in there in terms of consultation and feedback. If everything does get approved, it is a June 1st, 2018 date for approval with that. However, it's a long transition timeframe for anything to be implemented. It's about a 2 to 5 year transition if municipalities choose to transition under the new amended Blue Box program. That is the main one that has a lot of attention to it right now. Tires is also under amendment, and then we will see electronics MHSW in a couple years' time as well.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. And one last action item, the tender summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we acknowledged earlier, the Mill Creek Bridge is the dominant or the only item on the tender summary. And I did make mention that the price of the contract that is the price of the contract, and with the cost-sharing arrangement was the substance of our report and the $1.8 million required for the county's share of the project, including the engineering. I put naturally I put the budget value on that had been the previous budget value prior to introducing this morning's report.
Thank you, Brian. The recommendation that the warden and clerk be authorized to sign the following tender contract as per section 13.2.13 of the County of Bruce Purchase and Procurement Policy 17-21 Mill Creek Bridge Replacement. Discussion? Motion? Janice and Robert? Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're moving along to the information items, and the first one, surplus property, Bruce Road 6 at Holyrood.
At a past meeting, Mr. Chairman, we had identified that we were hoping to sell the Hollywood property this fall. For a variety of reasons, that has been deferred, and we hope to do it early in the spring. We have put some equipment in the building for the winter, and an adjacent landowner has asked to use the outside of the property, and we've offered it to them for the modest amount until the end of this winter. Okay. So just to bring committee up to speed on what's transpiring in Hollywood.
Mitch?
Just a question. I had one of our taxpayers asked if we have to do an environmental assessment before selling that property.
We were clear in the sale of it that it's an as-is condition. We were digging nearby several years ago, and we didn't find anything adverse at the location we were digging. But anyways, our thought was to sell it in its as-is condition.
If we did have an issue, could the new owner ever come back on us?
In discussions with our solicitor, the sale, the advertising and the sale is being done in a manner that acknowledges that they would not have that opportunity.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Moving on then, Brian, to B, the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail.
Again, we have been before committee back in August on this matter. We're bringing to committee's attention that actually Kerry has been talking to 6 of the 8 municipalities, of which councils are on board with the initiative, and acknowledges that the county would undertake the one partnership fee on behalf of the 6 municipalities. And the report also includes reference to the trail itself, as well as to the signage you can expect on the road systems that the department would install based on the signs being provided by the consortium to the county in the spring and summer of this year.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Moving on. Municipal Hazard and Special Waste Collection Program.
We've had a banner year, Mr. Chairman. If I can refer right to the table, we note. Again, we're thankful for Kerry administering this program. We look at the number of vehicles that have been through the event over the course of the last 4 years, and we can see that in 14 there was 2,400, and this year there's almost 3,000. We can see the collected waste has gone from 125 ton in 2014 to in excess of 150 ton in 2017, and I think committee as well as our department have been uncertain if this was a program that over a number of years we would see that the volumes and the interest would slow down as people would sort of move through going through the house and identifying products that they no longer need. It seems like the population expects a service. They're becoming much more diversion and environmentally sensitive, and wishing to do the right thing with the waste that should be disposed of in a manner that's special to normal household waste, normal household waste. So, Mr. Chairman, we're thankful that our prognostication for 2017 can accommodate the expenditure of $147,000 to the contractor for that number of events.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Winter maintenance book is attached. Brian, comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Do you have the time? We have lots of time. Okay, Mr. Chairman, we'll move. Okay. We provided committee with our winter maintenance book for 2017, 2018. We've got it was attached. It's been provided to your Public Works Manager. And if the committee should have any questions of Brian, we're more than willing to go over any of the elements of what had been circulated to the committee.
Very good. Mitch.
Just like being able to go on the website and see where the plows are.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
Is it Track My Plow, I think it's called.
Might I ask, Sherry or Kerry, we had an event recently, and we had a lot of interest in our website. Can you remember the volume in a couple of days?
There was 23,000 webpage views on our road conditions and closures for the event that occurred last Tuesday.
Yes. So it's well received, and a lot of people are looking at it. Yeah, it's a valuable service.
That's great. Okay, the last one, Winter Public Service Announcements Campaign.
Yeah, just to close the loop on another issue, Mr. Chairman, we had reported to you that we had made application for funding. We're very thankful to the MTO that we received the funding, and it softened the impact on us providing information to the public on the radio.
Okay, if there aren't any further comments, our next meeting is on January the 18th, and I need a motion to adjourn. Mike and Milt, all in favor? Carried.